This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
With the Venmo debit card, you can Venmo everything. Your favorite band's merch? You can Venmo this. Or their next show? You can Venmo that. Visit venmo.me/debit to learn more. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. Card may be used everywhere MasterCard is accepted. Venmo purchase restrictions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This message is sponsored by Greenlight. With school out, summer is the perfect time to teach our kids real-world money skills they'll use forever. Greenlight is a debit card and the #1 family finance and safety app used by millions of families, helping kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely. Parents can send their kids money and track their spending and saving, while kids build money confidence and skills in fun ways. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/Spotify. That's greenlight.com/Spotify.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts.
Claire Croft and Phil Lewis, welcome to the conversation today.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure to be with you both. You're joining us from across the pond in the UK. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about the power of people-centric change in today's business landscape. This is a topic I love and I could talk about all day long. I think you could say the same. So today it's going to be really fun to unpack a little bit of this. I suspect we're only going to be able to scratch the surface in our half hour together today. But we'll try to do this some justice and have a fun conversation. As we get started, I wanted to share their bio with everybody. In the realm of business transformation, Corporate Punk stands apart. Co-founded by Phil and Claire, this dynamic duo brings a refreshing approach to organizational evolution. Claire, an advocate for unlocking human potential, believes that true success emerges when each individual's talents are harnessed and magnified. Her strategic acumen and business-minded focus breathe life into her clients' visions. Phil, on the other hand, dismantles the myth that emotions and creativity have no place in business. He champions the power of people in building and rebuilding enterprises. Through Corporate Punk, they embed humanity into the core corporate giants, introducing a new operating system that aligns ideas, energy, and direction. I love everything about that. That is such a really cool way of framing up your organization, Corporate Punks. Great to be with you both. Anything you'd like to share by way of your background, personal context, or your company's background before we dive on in?
Well, I would just say very briefly by way of very quick background. I mean, the reason that this work came about, maybe this is something we can explore today. I don't know, John, but the business got founded nearly 10 years ago now because um, we'd been kicking around for years. Claire and I have known each other for a very long time. We spent time in creative agencies, in my case, in management consultancy as well, and spent a load of time working with lots of different client organizations as well.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
If you went on a road trip and you didn't stop for a Big Mac or drop a crispy fry between the car seats or use your McDonald's bag as a placemat, then that wasn't a road trip. It was just a really long drive. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's.
Hey business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 110,000 bonus miles for a limited time through July 16th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends 7/16/25.
And it sort of seemed like, it certainly seemed to me anyway, like I was surrounded by all of these people with all of this talent and good ideas and hard work, ability to work hard, I should say, and passion and commitment and all that sort of stuff. And I truly believe nobody gets out of bed in the morning to do a bad job. Everybody wants a nice day. Everybody wants to go and feel like they're making a contribution. And yet we seem to be uniquely good as human beings at building businesses that kind of trample all of that down rather than allowing it to fully flourish. And our central hypothesis as a duo and as a business, I think, has always been a business isn't broken. Like most consulting works off a paradigm, which is your business is broken. Welcome, I am the consultant, or we're the consultants. We're going to come and fix you. Our business doesn't work that way at all. Our business says you have got everything you need already to be able to prosper, all the talent, all the energy, all the good ideas, all the passion, all the commitment, all the rest of it. You're just getting in your own and each other's way. And what we need to do is work out and help you work out how you're getting in your own and each other's way. And if we can raise consciousness around that and help you build ways of thinking and ways of working that stop that happening, then business results will go on to flourish. And what we've seen over the last 10 years is we have seen extraordinary commercial results. I mean, with a client earlier on last week who was showing 500 to 800% smashing of their internal benchmarks just as a result of shifting some of that stuff. So I guess if introductions aside, if we're interested in the idea of corporate punk, then the idea of corporate punk is ultimately about unlocking that natural potential which exists in every organization.
Well, yeah, very good. As you're explaining that, in my mind, it just reminds me of a deficit versus an asset-based approach to how we go about change. So, from a community-based, social impact framework, we talk about that all the time. So I do a lot of work in that space, and we go into like community development, community building, and taking a deficit approach is exactly what's wrong with a lot of community building and community change. And it's what well-meaning people have done since the beginning of time. You go in with a white savior complex, you go in, you try to fix everything, thinking you have all the answers, right? And you're exactly right. That's what consultants have always done. You go in thinking you have all the answers, you're going to go in, you're going to fix everything because you're the expert, you have the models, you're going to go in, you're going to fix everything. And the reality is like you just said, organizations, they're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. No organization's perfect. No system's perfect, of course. But you have lived experience within that organization. You have people who are well-meaning, who get up in the morning wanting to do a good job. You have the pieces, you have the intention, you have the values. Now it's just a matter of helping people learn how to function and to get out of their own way and to put the pieces together, right? So it's a strengths based, it's a asset based approach. It's a totally different mindset of approaching change, right? And I think it's a much more powerful mindset. So I really appreciate that that's the approach that you take.
Yeah, I mean, for us, there's a supreme arrogance to thinking you can fix it because the complexity of the context in which a lot of organizational change is trying to happen, like no one person knows the answer.
Yeah.
The job is to create an environment where an answer can be explored with honesty, with openness, with optimism, actually. In a lot of our work, we see overwhelm is quite present. So whilst people may like the idea of being rescued, deep down they know that there's no one person who knows the answers to these big, challenging questions that they're trying to work through. So for us, it's not only the right thing, but it's the very honest thing to go in and say, our job is not to fix you. Our job is not to give you the answer. Our job is to help you get there together for yourselves. Like, we like to be made redundant. We love it when our clients don't need us anymore, because then we've done our work.
Yeah, it is the honest thing. I also appreciate that's how you frame it up, because I'm a university professor. That's my number one gig. I do consulting work as well, things like this podcast on the side. But my number one gig, I'm a full-time university professor. I teach organizational development, change management to my students. This is like the number one thing I teach them is you do not go into an organization with a white savior complex thinking you're going to go in with all the answers and just fix everything for them. You do not go in with all the answers. You go in with questions. You go in curious, and you don't go in with all the answers, and you don't go in with some magic box, like some magic formula to you're just going to change everything. If complex problems had easy answers, then they would be fixed, right? Like the most challenging complex issues wouldn't be pervasive if they were easy to fix. And yet we have a whole world of consultants out there that go around with their little models thinking, oh, just plug me in. I'm going to insert my little model here and I'm going to magically fix you. And that's so ridiculous. You're right. You use the word arrogant. It is so incredibly arrogant to think that you're going to come in with your off the shelf, like prepackaged model with your trademark model and all of a sudden just come in and magically fix, this multi-year, multi-decade challenge that this organization has been dealing with. It's absurd, frankly, right?
Yeah, what's interesting about it, the fact that that is the basis on which so much of the industry works, right? So much of the consulting industry works that way. And indeed, there's a lot of clients who effectively commission work off that basis, or on that basis as well. And you can get into all sorts of reasons why that's the case, but I think it's worth instead kind of dwelling on what the opposite is, right? So the opposite to as Claire was saying, the opposite to having the answers is something like enabling the answers to be found, or at least knowing where to start looking for them. The opposite to the white savior complex is something like deep empathic work where we'll come and sit with you in the mess and help you figure it out for yourself. And it's about doing that kind of human stuff, and for us, I mean, we were putting together a paper last week for a client, and one of the things that this paper called on us to do was to sort of pull a couple of testimonials in, and it was really interesting rereading a testimonial from a client from a few years ago, because she started off with, this kind of work isn't always easy. You've got to really be prepared to look at the root causes of your problems. But what was so lovely about where it went, and I found it really nice to kind of reconnect with it, was this idea that actually in doing that level of work, in understanding that in a deeper sense, like what those underlying emotional, psychological, sort of group dynamic related, structural, systemic causes of the issues were, she'd actually found a tremendous sense of liberation, a tremendous sense of uplift in that. So although the work itself isn't always easy, the white savior sort of complex, as you talk about it, is fundamentally unsatisfying. I think in the end, it doesn't produce good results, but it doesn't actually produce human breakthroughs either a lot of the time. Whereas this stuff can be a little bit less appealing on the surface, but good heavens, it can unlock some wonderful things in terms of how people work together, how they relate to one another, and how they feel about themselves and their work. And if the spirit of punk isn't anything, it's that. It's about the unlocking of natural talent and natural energy and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's interesting to think about those opposites of not having the answers, because it can feel like the opposite to having the answers. It can feel like the opposite is not having the answers. It's actually not. It's about a deeply rewarding search.
Well, and as I framed at the beginning of this episode, your approach is the power of people-centric change. I think that's kind of like, as you were saying, what's the opposite, right? And I think that's the opposite, the power of people-centric change. So it's not model-driven change, right? It's not going in with the answers. It's not answered, it's not off-the-shelf model change. It's not off-the-shelf answer-driven change, white savior complex-driven change. It's people-centric, empathy-driven change. Like, you go in, you sit with people, you tap into the lived experience and the living experts within the organization. You ask the questions. You do the hard work of like actually doing the original research and gathering the data and actually trying to understand what's actually going on within the organization, because no two organizations are the same, despite how they might look on the surface. And ultimately, that people-centric approach will yield much better results. So like at the beginning, when you talked about 5 to 8x kind of results for that client organization, that's amazing, and I suppose you're not always going to see that, but you're going to see positive results within organizations when they start to recognize and see their own humanity, and they start to recognize and tap into their own people potential. And the models of a lot of businesses today, they simply, again, to both of your points earlier, they tend to get in their own way, because the way businesses traditionally have been set up to function don't necessarily fit well with the modern world of work, the modern kind of economic conditions of the world that we're in, where we need rapidly agile, rapidly flexible and transitioning types of organizations that can adapt on a dime.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a topic that is, if I was going to stand on a soapbox at any time, it would be with organizations' relationship with time. Because where the whole need for agility has gone is, let's just do stuff. We just need to take action. And thinking as an activity has become one of the most devalued aspects of work today. And yet the complexity of what we are asking employees to engage with requires thought. It requires time. And whenever we start working with clients, they have this really awkward discomfort with the fact that we will spend a lot of time thinking, what is it you are actually trying to achieve? And they'll get a bit antsy with us, and they'll go, why are we spending all this time on thinking? And we will always invariably at some point say to them, you feel like you've not got the time to think now, yet you'll have all the time in the world to clear up the mess that ensues from you not thinking this through for just 10 minutes, right? So a lot of our work actually is about shifting an organization's relationship with time. And, one of our mantras is go slow to go fast. The agility comes from clarity. The agility comes from knowing what your actions are in service of. So your point is absolutely valid. And for us, the solution is in change your relationship with time. Well, part of the solution, I should emphasize.
Well, there's this overt action bias in lots of organizations, right? It's this thing around, there's a brilliant British show called Yes Minister. It was made in the late 70s, I think it was. And there's this wonderful line in it where one character explains politicians' logic as he defines it. And he goes, politicians' logic is, we need to do something. This is something, therefore we should do this. And that feels like, the sort of mode of decision making that goes on in organizations. There is actually a deeper underlying issue a lot of the time, which is not just an overt action bias, but also you've got this thing which is human beings aren't terribly good at thinking systemically, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is we tend to be very good at sort of playing the whack-a-mole with the problem we've got in front of us, but not really understanding the relationship between that problem and the potential fix for that problem and everything else that is happening or could happen across the organization. So actually bring those things together, which is the overt desire to leap into action and a lack of systems thinking. This explains why a lot of change processes actually go all right, because people start thinking, we've got these problems, we better get something done. That looks like a sensible thing to do. Let's crack on and do that. And then before you know it, actually, you've ended up with 24 semi-competing work streams, all of which are kind of fighting one another in fundamental sense, even if only at the level of prioritization, and some of which are actually creating all sorts of unintended consequences elsewhere in the organization. But again, it's not that anybody set out to do a bad job. It's just because we think as humans and how we relate as humans and how a lot of organizational incentives work kind of mean that's the outcome. So again, if we're talking about people-centered change, it's about how do we help an organization understand that that's its default kind of dynamic? And then to Claire's point about time, how do we get people to rethink what they're doing so actually we can be a bit more deliberate about the choices we make, in the understanding it's like a hockey stick in the end and you just get a whole load of stuff moving a lot more efficiently and effectively as a result.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we spend so much time trying to untangle and trying to clean up the messes, put out the fires that emerge because of the bad decisions we make, because of the problems that we create. Like if we can take a little bit of time up front to be more strategic, to think through the systems, processes, to just be thoughtful and to do the thinking work, we can avoid a lot of those potential fires. We can avoid a lot of the potential unintended consequences. We can avoid a lot of the potential, unintended harms that we later are going to have to spend countless hours having to deal with. And it's the short-term versus long-term kind of perspective that, for better or for worse, I mean, in my opinion, much worse, in our society today and in our, culture, certainly in the US and in the UK and a lot of Western countries, we just aren't very good at thinking more long-term. And so we sacrifice, in the short term, things that if we were to put the time towards it, it's going to pay off massively in the long run, because we see short-term potential gains in efficiency, but it's going to hurt us hugely in the long run. And so Claire, like you were saying, like spend 10 minutes, spend half an hour right now. That might that might save us days, weeks, months down the line or whatever, but we're not willing to do it because, we're just either we're not sure how to free up that 10 minutes or that half hour. We're not used to trying to free up that 10 minutes or half an hour, or whatever the case may be. And so in part, we have to retrain ourselves, like individually. We have to kind of reestablish norms within our organizations to allow for it. And I don't know, thoughts on that? How do you go into organizations to try to help create room for that kind of thinking, that deep thinking work and strategy and just process for asking the questions that need to be asked?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I just want to pick up on where what you were saying there around the harm it causes. It's harm to people it causes, right? The stress that it floods into the organization, the anxiety, the fear a lot of the time. So I think, it's not just about business performance. And to us, happy, contented, energized people is business performance. Like it's not, do you choose people or do you choose business performance? One enables the other. But in terms of how we create the space in time, I mean, a lot of the time, we don't get lots of calls that are sort of along the lines of, in 6 months' time, we're thinking of doing some change and we'd really like to get on the front foot of how we could do this brilliantly. What we tend to get are calls that are, we've been trying to do something for 2 years, we have made no progress. We are really up against it. We have got to work out a way to do this differently. Can you help? So the way that people can often be engaging with us is from a point of where they know that what they're doing doesn't work. So there is an openness there to hearing something different about how you might want to approach your change. That said, that openness still then requires them to feel confident in the idea that conversation is going to lead to better outcomes. And this is where we would say it's our toolbox, right? So we completely agree with you. It's not about bring a model. It's not about bring a framework, but we have tools that create conversation that are strategic in nature, but allow in relatively short spaces of time, for example, an executive team to experience the value of collaborating together around something such as, what are we trying to achieve? Because these are conversations that they've never had, not really, because the conversations operated at the level of, we've got to hit some numbers, not what do we want and need this business to be in service of the commercial goals that we've got to achieve. So our way of working allows for them to experience the value of clarity in a relatively short space of time. We do also use data a lot in our work. Now, data is something that actually people are quite comfortable to spend time with because there's an objectivity to it and there's a certainty to it, and it allows them to gain a confidence that they can start to make different decisions off the back of it. So we have a diagnostic platform called the Change Index, which evaluates an organization's readiness for change. And when you are having a conversation that says, here's what the data is telling us, now let's talk about what is it really going to take, people lean into a conversation like that and they find themselves spending the time without really realizing they're spending the time. So it's about equipping them with ways of conversing, equipping them with insight that allows them to experience the value of taking time to think. We never go in and say, the way you're going to work with us is you're going to sit still and we're going to have a chat for a while and you're going to do some thinking, because A, that's infantilizing, and B, they'll look at us like, what the hell are you doing? Because on some level, they think we're going to go in and tell them the answer. But of course, they're very quickly, that's disbanded as a myth for them. So it is about knowing where they're at, what they are trying to achieve, and then we will curate a series of interventions that will help them to experience the value of thinking, of which I would say, I don't know if you agree, Phil, but data can be an infinitely valuable part of.
Yeah, I mean, just to add briefly, I mean, I think exactly what you said. I mean, data and sort of conversational tools, but the interesting thing that kind of underlies it, I think, goes to your point, John, a little bit, is the idea that there's a kind of resistance in organizations to working this way. It's actually not really our experience at all. There is a kind of resistance at the surface level, and there is this over action bias and everything else. But there's this thing in ancient Sanskrit about, there's no mistakes, there's only lessons, and a lesson will be repeated until it is learned. So in other words, all of us are kind of doomed to repeat the same mistakes or the same lessons in life until we learn them. And that's true of organizations as much as it's true of individual human beings, right? So organizations tend to be in the habit of repeating the same mistake over and over and over. So when you are able to stop trying to solve the problem at the same level of thinking that caused it, when you get out of that mode of thinking, well, actually, there's going to be a simple solution here. And when you kind of elevate up and you start using data and the kind of tools Claire was talking about to foster a different kind of conversation, the latent appetite for that sort of conversation just gets completely activated. And exactly what happens, what Claire was saying, it's like it can start to move really quite quickly because actually we are wired to contribute. We're wired to try and solve problems. And actually, at some level as well, most of us are a bit sick of seeing ourselves and our businesses, our teams, or whatever it is, repeat the same issues over and over and over again. So if you start showing people good quality data and good quality, ways of conversing and relating and thinking and all those sorts of things, that helps to paint the path, that helps them to feel as though there's a path out of that. And that the future can look different to the sort of doomed repetition of the past. They will run down that path quicker than you can sometimes keep up with them. And that's the great joy of the work.
Claire and Phil, this has just been a super fun conversation. I note the time. I need to let you both go and get on with your busy days and probably get home to your loved ones and have dinner and all of that. But before we wrap things up for today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Well, we're all over LinkedIn, so look at Corporate Punk on LinkedIn. You can also find me and Claire on there as well if you go to corporatepunk.com. And we also have a newsletter that comes out once a week called Small Change, which is basically tiny couple of paragraphs of advice around change. You get some very, very good response from our readership of different clients and other people who are interested in change work. So you can go to corporatepunk.com, sign up for Small Change. That'll come into your inbox every Tuesday. And the last word on the topic, just to say, John, thank you certainly from me. There is no time ever spent talking about this stuff that is wasted. And I loved what you had to say as well about that kind of asset as opposed to deficit approach to this work. I've not heard that phrase before. And I will take that with me on the back of this. I think it's a lovely way of thinking about it. So thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Claire, anything you want to add?
No, just thank you for spending the time with us, John. And I think the work that you're doing in educating the next generation of consultants to go in and solve with rather than to is all for the greater good. Businesses need consultants, but they need consultants who believe in the power of humanity to solve the problems it faces. So thank you for your time.
Thank you both. It has been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Claire and Phil can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.